Hello and welcome to the final of the Leaderboard Trophy tournament of 2025. With being able to win the last 4-player game that you saw on this channel, I actually made it to the finals, which I didn't think after my start in this tournament, where I just barely finished 9th in the first stage, but of course one win in stage 2 is enough to already make it to the finals. And so today against Eepogi and A440, the current world champion and the world champion bronze medalist from last year, so two very strong opponents. Today the winner of the Leaderboard Trophy tournament will be decided, which will be the player who wins this game. But of course, this tournament is also there to score points for the leaderboard itself, so that at the end a player of the year is crowned. And there's only one player of us three that still has a chance to become a player of the year, and that is Eepogi. If he should manage to finish second or actually a joint third place or second place, whatever you call it, would already be enough. So as long as he doesn't finish last, he will score enough points for the leaderboard to actually be crowned player of the year. So there will be some very interesting things will be decided in this game. And I would say now, without further ado, we are starting with taking a look at the game, and first of all at the leaders and wonders. And we can see that we have a little bit of lab synergy in H3 with Sid Meier and Bill Gates. There is no spaceflight, however. We have Chaplin and Fleming, but no Marlene and no Hollywood. We have Pierre and the Internet. We have Gandhi for the military as well as the Manhattan Project. There's also the Red Cross. In H2, we have some strong wonders with Ocean Liner Service and Suez Canal. There's no James Cook in the game, but there is Maria Theresa to pair with the Ocean Liner Service. We have Newton as a very strong economical leader. There's James Watt, but no railroad. We have Gaudi and Bach, and also maybe Darwin as culture leaders, and Catherine as one military action leader. In H1 we have one military action leader as well with Jan Žižka. There's Genghis Khan and Nostradamus to help with the strength. Is Eleanor, Isabella can maybe be nice to go for a colonization setup. And then there's Saladin as just a very solid leader. Also there's Leonardo but no Gutenberg. We have both of the Happy Face solution wonders with St. Peter's Basilica and Forbidden City. There's Dimitri Castle but no Great Wall, Silk Road but no Universitas. And there's also Machu Picchu. Eepogi is in first position, could take Hammurabi, a very strong pick, but he decides to instead take the Engineering Genius, which I guess makes sense because there's not only Hammurabi but other very strong leaders in the row. So while he might not get Hammurabi now, he probably will get either Confucius or Boudica, and that is maybe then with such a strong replacement, it's probably the correct choice to pass on Hammurabi here and make sure that you get the Engineering Genius. That, however, left of course Hammurabi to me, and with me having the option to taking him together with the yellow card, and with there also not being a clear military counter or something on the row, there is no Colossus, no Caesar, no Sun Tzu, I think I have to take Hammurabi here, and then I take the Urban Growth just because it's the more efficient yellow card. Maybe also allows me to start with the second lab in case I don't have a chance to get an interesting HA wonder that I want to finish quickly. And I could take the stockpile so that maybe more cards are revealed, but at the end I just went with the more efficient yellow card here. And A440 could have gone for either Confucius or Boudica plus the stockpile, but then maybe it's uncertain what wonder he will be getting. IS Hammurabi can take a strong one away from him, so he actually decides to take the library here. And while now Confucius and Boudica will be discarded before his next turn, he still has a chance to get Cleopatra or Ashoka, which also are very fine leaders. Cleopatra works very nicely with the library, so maybe he was fine with just getting one of those combinations. Now Eepogi has to decide between Confucius and Boudica. And I think especially in a 3-player game, Confucius is probably the better choice. He elects him, builds a mine, increases his population. Interestingly, the two stronger wonders, Pyramids and Stonehenge, were not revealed, so there's now only the Hanging Gardens and the Colosseum. Eepogi is definitely not willing to take one of those for 2 civil actions. And for me it will be the same. I mean, I have Hammurabi, maybe I should consider just spending my action somewhat efficiently and taking the Colosseum, but I don't like that wonder that much in 3-player games, and so instead I just build my second lab first, as now that is indeed the case, that maybe I don't get a wonder that I want to finish quickly, and then I rather want to have designs first. Maybe it could allow me to invest into an iron and turn earlier or something, to invest my resources into something. And after increasing my population, I with Hammurabi have still 2 civil actions left, and I decide to take the urban growth and the frugality. It could maybe be considered to not take the urban growth and just float the last military action to get 1 more draw, because those are not the most exciting ways to spend my civil actions now that I have already built a second layer. But at the end I decided to still use Hammurabi. I have to be a bit careful though, because with Hammurabi, especially if you don't go for a wonder and can't spend actions and that, you have to be a bit careful about hand space, but I should be able to use the frugality immediately at the next turn, and with that I thought hopefully I will be fine. I draw a colonization card. A440 goes for Cleopatra. I think with the library that is a very, very good choice. He starts by building the second lab and then increases his population. Lets the knights stay on 2 civil actions for Eepogi. I could have taken the knights for 3 at my last turn with Hammurabi, but it just felt too expensive. I mean, my alternative is to take those 2 yellows, but I still wasn't willing to take the knights for 3. Eepogi Seeds, the development of planning is revealed. When I watched A440's turn, I saw that the Silk Road appeared on the row, and I thought, I might be able to get an early Silk Road, but I thought, Eepogi also doesn't have a wonder, will he take it away? And I think sadly there was a development revealed that makes maybe the decision to take the Silk Road away a bit easier for him, because with the development of planning, he can choose either development of civil life or settlement, both basically giving him an additional civil action, and with that he chose development of civil life, built a second lab, and with that he maybe then has actually enough civil actions to allow taking the Silk Road for 3 civil actions, which is quite expensive but takes a very strong option away from me, and is maybe still better than taking Colosseum or Hanging Gardens for Eepogi. Can use the Engineering Genius immediately in the first step and maybe finish it relatively quickly. Now it is my turn. I at least get some other interesting stuff. Now that I can't go for the Silk Road, there's a Monarchy, which is of course an interesting card to get with Hammurabi. Also, while I don't get Silk Road, there's Forbidden City coming down the row. And this turn was a bit awkward nonetheless. I mean, I was happy to have those options, but it was a bit awkward with the development of planning. I, as you can see, chose the development of settlement. However, choosing that means that I actually can't use the frugality this turn, meaning I have somewhat limited hand space. And you can see that I will go for a turn where I just take the Monarchy, the Knights, and I will actually end my turn. Maybe I could also just, to use the action, take the Hanging Gardens, but I mean, at least I will get an additional draw, and I think the Forbidden City is just a better wonder to get, especially paired with the Monarchy, making the Monarchy maybe a strong long-term solution as a government form. I think it's worthwhile not picking up the Hanging Gardens here. What I could have done, though, is that I chose the development of civil life. I could choose the development of civil life instead of the development of settlement and build the 3rd mine with a 1 resource discount, and then use the frugality to increase my population, making space in my hand. I could then basically do the exact same stuff, having 1 space in my hand, but then when we take a look at what I could actually take with the last civil action, we can see that the theology with my plan of going for Forbidden City is really not a great card to have and might just cause even more hand space issues. The Ridgeland might cause hand space issues, so while I could then use all of my actions, I just didn't find a nice way to use those actions. I thought about maybe some turns where I just take Forbidden City already this turn, but I didn't see any reason to do this. And so at the end I just chose the development of settlement, as it is the even better development maybe, as it gives me 2 food in this situation and a civil action, which is maybe better than 1 resource in a civil action. At least I draw 2 cards, and I draw an event here, the Good Harvest, also the Naval Trade Agreement. A440 will use the development of civil life to build a 3rd mine, uses Clio to build a step of the library, and is interestingly willing to take the Code of Laws for 3 civil actions. Maybe wasn't too happy about his alternative, about the alternatives in the row, and I mean with the library he will have some additional science, and if there are the right developments revealed before his next turn, he might even be able to develop the Code of Laws already at the next turn. Eepogi Seeds, and the development of trade routes is revealed, so I440 indeed will be able to develop the Code of Laws at his next turn, and it also changes something for Eepogi, because he has now exactly 5 resources, meaning he has now just enough resources to actually just finish the Silk Road, and I guess that's very strong for him, getting all of those civil actions out of the way, getting the production going already this turn, and also not going in consumption yet, so he is really accumulating some food, but might be a little bit inflexible at the next turn, as he needs to spend some actions to get out of corruption. Now it's my turn. I offered a naval trade agreement to Eepogi. There's a Suez Canal in the game. He has already pushed 2 events. I thought maybe he will accept it, and the 2 blue tokens could be quite strong for me, especially because I might potentially do a revolution at the next turn. So the pact is accepted. And I could even do a revolution just this turn. I could do the revolution, maybe use the frugality to increase my population, but I think the Forbidden City would just be very strong to pair with the monarchy, and also Nostradamus for 1 civil action, with me going into monarchy and having 3 military actions, and generally me maybe going for, with the Forbidden City, for a setup that gives me strong economical value but lacks a little bit of cultural reduction. I thought Nostradamus is very well a very strong leader for me and pairs very well with that plan of going for monarchy plus Forbidden City. So I didn't want to do a revolution this turn and rather wanted to take those strong cards that are available for me. So I take the Forbidden City, I use the frugality to increase my population so that I can now make space in my hand. I take Nostradamus, and with the last 2 actions I will just build 2 steps of the Forbidden City, and at the next turn, maybe if there are some resources revealed, I could finish the Forbidden City, but if not, I can maybe also just do a revolution to monarchy. I can also develop it peacefully, so that will be an option. So I'm just a bit flexible, I think, for my next turn, either being able to do a revolution or being able to do some normal stuff and maybe get the monarchy going peacefully. I pass on the iron, even giving it for 1 civil action for A440, but I think I just can't afford grabbing that as well here. I also pass on the alchemy, which of course could have been interesting, especially with the urban growth. I draw, I think, the developed territory 1, A440 finishes the library, develops the code of laws, takes the iron, increases his population, so I think a very straightforward, strong turn. Eepogi seeds opens the development of agriculture. He really has now a lot of food saved up, and he also is missing a blue token because of the naval trade agreement pact, but he can just increase his population 3 times, and that is actually enough to get him out of corruption. And interestingly, with the last civil action, he will grab the bread and circuses. Could maybe be an indicator of what events he potentially has seeded, maybe immigration or rebellion, or he just wants to have it in hand generally. It's a strong arena game with Darwin, Gaudi, and Pierre being there, so maybe he just wants to have it. We could have taken Swordsman or Alchemy instead, so it's interesting that he chooses to go for the bread and circuses, but I think it can be quite strong in this game. Now it's my turn, and as you can already see, I choose to do a revolution here, which was not a completely clear choice for me, because I still have this urban growth A in hand, and I thought about a turn where I start my turn by increasing my population, then actually electing Nostradamus already to make space in my hand, and then taking the alchemy, going for an upgrade, using the urban growth, getting some science production going, and then maybe later on with the plan of going for the monarchy peacefully. And now that I go for the monarchy revolution, I will just increase my population, so I don't get the alchemy, but I have the 2 additional ignored unhappy workers from the Forbidden City. I also chose the development of settlement earlier on, so I have a decent amount of population. And I thought with that being the case, I can actually use the urban growth to just build a 3rd lab. And the 3rd lab could potentially be strong in this game. There's Darwin. In H3 there's Bill Gates and Sid Meier, so I thought maybe that could actually give me a nice option of using the urban growth A, and with that I was willing to pass on the alchemy, because now both alchemies will be gone. There's only 1 copy of iron left. It could happen that I maybe don't find the best things to upgrade, but I have still improved my position even if I don't get any things to upgrade, thanks to having that Forbidden City plus monarchy. And if I have 3 labs, at least I will be at 3 science production. So at the end I felt it's probably strong to go for this monarchy revolution, which makes it that I still have a bunch of science left after I have setting up my government form. As you can see, I don't elect Nostradamus yet, as I thought maybe at the next turn the event deck will be flipped, and then maybe it could be the perfect timing, getting use out of Hammurabi's extra action 1 more time. A440 seeds, opens the development of warfare, takes the free warrior, and increases his population 2 times. That gets him out of corruption. He doesn't really have a project to use Cleo's resources on, and with that he makes sure to exchange her this turn with Jan Žižka, reveals the fighting band tactic, gets some cultural production going, and takes the engineering genius. Then it's Eepogi's turn, he seeds, so now the event deck will be flipped, the development of science is revealed, he has a lot of science actually saved up. He builds an additional warrior, takes the swordsman, the irrigation, develops the bread and circuses and builds one. Him building that already now could of course just be a way to get out of corruption, but again it could be a sign that something Happy Face related is coming here. And then he also reveals the Legion tactic, which actually puts him at 6 strength, so now I probably would have elected Nostradamus anyway, but also to be safe from aggressions. I mean, I actually have that many defense cards, but still. With the plan of going for Nostradamus, I kinda don't want to put a lot of events in. Or I don't necessarily want to see it now, and I actually, as you can see, cancel the naval trade agreement here. Now it could be the time where colonies are coming. As you can see, I've drawn quite a bunch of defense cards, and I thought maybe if I take that colonization bonus back from Eepogi, if he indeed has committed to some colonies, maybe I have actually a chance winning those with the defense cards that I'm having in hand. And with the Suez Canal in there, it could certainly be nice winning a colony for relatively cheap. So I cancel this pact using the politics action now, while I have not elected Nostradamus yet. And in this turn I will first of all start by finishing the Forbidden City. I will then use Hammurabi's military action to elect Nostradamus, still leaving me with 5 civil actions left, and I will just use this turn to mostly take a bunch of cards. I certainly want to have the breakthrough. Getting 2 signs for 1 civil action is just a great deal, especially with having that many civil actions. I also thought about taking maybe that copy of breakthrough, but I ended up taking just even more cards from the 1 civil action area. I also want to have the frugality. I thought if I don't increase my population now, I have the chance to get 2 more population out at the next turn, really leaving me with a very solid amount of population, so that I may be fine without any food upgrade for quite some time. I don't have knowledge about rats, so that could backfire. Eepogi has seeded most of the events. He has 3 food saved up, which certainly still could mean that he has potentially seeded the rats, so it could backfire. But I, at the end, was willing to take that risk, as I think it's just quite efficient to take that for 1 civil action. And then I use this urban growth A that I have still in hand, make a bit of space in my hand to build a 3rd lab. I have just enough resource to do it. I increase my science production even more, which should be strong. And then with the last 2 civil actions, I take another copy of urban growth, and I also take the drama, because there's Bach in the game, there's Antoni Gaudi in the game, and especially if I should stay in low resource production, then the drama with Bach could be quite strong. Also pairs nicely with the Forbidden City, as the drama plus the Forbidden City will make it that I have enough happy faces for now. So at the end, that was the turn that I came up with. At the end, I have to decide how many defense cards do I want to keep and how many events. I decided to keep 2 defense cards in 1 event. I wanted to make sure that I can seed with Nostradamus. And maybe I could keep all 3 defense cards, but I don't know for certain whether a colony is coming, and if I just make sure that I'm able to seed, then if I reveal a colony at my turn, at least I win the tiebreaker, and if I would not be able to seed, I don't have the chance to win the tiebreaker, and so I kept the Good Harvest in hand, drawing the wealthy territory in the scientific breakthrough. A440 doesn't seed, starts going for the iron. To go for the iron, goes for 2 upgrades, also grabs a copy of Bread and Circuses. As we saw, it's a strong arena game, and he also takes a copy of Breakthrough for 1 civil action, so that again looks like a relatively straightforward turn. Eepogi seeds, thanks to Nostradamus, I'm at the moment not the weakest, and there is actually a colony revealed immediately, so I was very happy that I cancelled the pact, even though Eepogi maybe wouldn't have been able to bid a lot more anyway, and I'm actually winning the strategic territory for only 2, so for 1 warrior and only 1 card, which I was extremely happy to see, giving me more draws, maybe better events to seed for Nostradamus. Only H1 draws, but I get a colony for the Suez, and that could end up being quite strong. Eepogi goes for Eleanor, could have gone for Saladin, but I mean Eleanor is a nice transitional leader. If he gets an H2 leader quickly, she also gives him 2 civil actions, and in addition the chance to maybe produce some culture, get some additional draws, so I think that can be a fine decision. Depends maybe a bit on whether that card is an event or not, but I mean he will also improve his draws, goes up to 3, but will also miss out on some draws with going for all of those upgrades, so it will be interesting to see if that will be an event. Then he takes the Patriotism. By the way, the card that he seeded I of course saw with Nostradamus, and it was a Confucius event. Now it is my turn, as you can see. I of course want to push with Nostradamus, I'm not the weakest. I could get punished by reds, but I was still willing to seed. And I, as you can see, seed the wealthy territory into the deck, because I have quite a bunch of signs. I have also the breakthrough in hand, the cartography is available for 1 civil action, there could be other colonies seeded by Eepogi, and there's a Suez Canal in the game, so I thought maybe it could be quite strong to invest some of my signs now into the cartography. If I miss out on the iron, which could certainly end up being the case, then the wealthy territory and the 6 additional resource could also be really helpful for me, and with that I was willing to seed the territory. There is a Confucius event revealed. I will not only go for the cartography, but also for the code of laws. I just have that much science, and I think having even more civil actions will still be helpful for me. So I go for the code of laws, increase my population with the frugality, take a rich land, it will be very helpful in case I go for coal upgrades, and then I take and develop the cartography and build a warrior to get out of corruption, but also get stronger, and with copying the fighting band tactic I am now nicely prepared to maybe also bid for some stronger colonies, like vast territory or something, and I just use my military actions now in H1. I still can keep some events in hand, so that I hopefully will be able to push at the upcoming turns every turn with Nostradamus. The culture that I got from seeding this turn was actually the first culture overall that I scored this game, so Nostradamus now being quite helpful so that I don't fall behind in culture too much. And as you can see, I don't increase my population, but Eepogi also didn't increase his population, which I think is a big sign that he didn't seed the reds, and with that I was willing to do the same, and I then hopefully will be able to increase my population for 4 food at the next turn. I keep 2 events in hand, a scientific breakthrough and a good harvest, as well as a colonization card. I discard actually the open borders agreement, I just want to push every turn with Nostradamus. A440 offers a trade routes agreement to Eepogi, wants to use food as resources, but that pact is rejected. Here this turn will develop the bread and circuses, builds one, maybe noticed that Eepogi did put some priority into getting his arena online, and then he takes some yellow cards. Eepogi seeds, and the new deposits are revealed, which is strong for AF140, but also not bad for Eepogi, because as you can see there's a copy of coal on the row, and thanks to the additional resource of this event, he is actually able to go for an upgrade this turn, which he otherwise wouldn't have been able to do. It's just enough to get him out of corruption, and he gets some early coal upgrades, something that I certainly also would have liked to see for my civilization. I will get something different though, and that also led me towards seeding the scientific breakthrough into the deck. There's of course a copy of iron in the row, and I could just go for a bunch of upgrades, even 3 upgrades I could do this turn, which could be quite strong. There are some interesting wonders. I mean, I maybe want to go for the Suez Canal, the ocean liner service is of course extremely strong. But I actually will make the decision here to just skip the iron, going for the scientific method to combine with the scientific breakthrough. I do think there's just some better synergy for it in the game. There's Newton for the scientific method, there's James Watt, which I leave myself open to in case I get him nicely timed together with the coal, as I also still need selective breeding that could end up being an extremely strong leader for me. And in H3 there's Bill Gates, having scientific method with him could be quite strong, and if I don't take the scientific method, A440, it's extremely strong for him. For Eepogi it's very strong as well, so I take a very strong card away from my opponents, and going for iron upgrades and just taking scientific method in hand I think didn't feel that great, and especially with having the scientific breakthrough I felt that going for the scientific method should be the best solution. We can see here there is actually a rebellion revealed, no one gets hit by it. Bit lucky for A440, or there was at least a potential for him to get unlucky. I think he had some unhappy workers for some time during this event phase, but he also maybe read the situation correctly that he needs to build this and now gets rewarded for the choice. So you can see I take the scientific method, I go for an upgrade, I increase my population to get out of corruption, and I could still take the iron in hand. Maybe it would be the safer play, but if the coal should be very late, the second copy, or if it is taken away even or something, there is still the Suez Canal, which I maybe also can hope to get. There's the wealthy territory, which I can hope to get. And with those things coming, I felt confident enough to not take the iron and instead take a rich land, which will at least help me a lot in case I should actually get the coal. So I was willing to do this choice, but could certainly get punished because there's now only one copy of Cole left, so not a clear choice here, but I felt like with all of those things that I mentioned, I maybe will be fine, even if I should miss out on Cole. I draw some cards, some interesting ones. The fortifications could be a very strong tactic if I manage to get it going, and before I'm maybe needing to invest into other military technologies. And I draw an autonomous territory, making it that the Suez Canal actually is now a very strong wonder for me. A440 takes the Rifleman for 3 civil actions, builds one, upgrades one, is now the strongest instead of the weakest. And Eepogi Seeds, sadly, a bit of an unfortunate timing for me. The one strength event that was in the deck is now revealed just at the one time when I'm the weakest. A440 gets strongest and sadly immediately gets the 3 resources. Maybe at least the resources are not as valuable for him as for Eepogi, so I think I would rather see him win it than Eepogi. I mean, he soon also will have a lot of resources, but I of course was very unhappy that I get hit by that event now. Also, I think I forgot to mention what my opponents have seeded for events into the deck. Eepogi, just at this point, actually pushed the Vast Territory 2 into the deck, and we will also see during his turn why he did it. He increases his population, elects Darwin, gets 3 civil actions back from Eleanor, so manages to replace her very quickly, and then gets the navigation with the Darwin discount, develops it immediately, and goes for an upgrade. So he maybe wants to compete for either colonies that he has seeded himself or for the ones that he has expected me to seed. And then there got actually the red seeded, I think by Eepogi, and A440 I think didn't seed an event. So let's see. Yeah, there's one more event that I had knowledge about, which I probably will remember soon. Eepogi goes for a coal upgrade. Another one, so it's now at 7 resource production, but doesn't have a chance to get those strong yellow cards. There's Newton coming down the row, a very interesting leader for me with having the scientific method. I this turn push the Good Harvest into the deck. I was thinking that maybe there's a chance that at the time when it will be revealed I will be better prepared for it, and I certainly didn't want to push the autonomous territory, especially because, as you can see, there's actually the Suez Canal coming down the row. The event revealed is the scientific breakthrough that I've just seeded earlier on, giving me now a bit more science than my opponents. I lose my 3rd lab to the border conflict, which is certainly a bit painful, as I for the moment have enough population and don't necessarily profit from getting the population maybe elsewhere. I could maybe just do a strong Newton turn here, maybe take Newton, take the architecture, prepare myself nicely for a strong Newton setup. But with having that autonomous territory, and at least with having some hopes of still winning the wealthy territory, even though that those hopes might not be as big because Eepogi has the navigation, has drawn some additional cards with Eleanor, so I still at least have hopes to win either the wealthy territory 1 or the vast territory 2 that Eepogi has actually seeded. And with that, I thought the Suez Canal was maybe too strong, especially because I don't know when I will get coal. If I don't take it, Eepogi might be able to get it. And yeah, so I passed to Newton here. I have a lot of science anyway. I have already a government farm. Maybe the additional science from Newton at this point could just be overkill. And there are still other strong leaders for me, especially James Watt, and also the other ones could potentially be strong. So at the end I take the Suez Canal. I could still take Newton in hand, but it felt a bit too expensive for me, and I think the Engineering Genius and the reserves are just extremely helpful for me, because those will make sure that I can even finish the Suez Canal already at the next turn if I don't have anything better to do. Keep the autonomous territory, the fortifications tactic. I draw 2 strength events and a colonization card, which I was happy to see. A440 seeds. Confucius event is revealed. That was the last missing event that I forgot about. That was seeded by Eepogi in his last Confucius turn. A440 plays the cultural heritage. Has to choose here between the Republic and the Conmon. Conmon would cost an additional civil action, more science, and he would have less civil action, so he goes for the Republic, which is still interesting because he doesn't know whether he will get strategy. Catherine is already discarded, so he could certainly end up being stuck on 2 military actions at some point, but nonetheless is willing to go for the Republic here. Takes the urban growth, the breakthrough, plays the reserves for food, increases his population, builds a rifleman, and is now at 14 strength, the strongest again. Eepogi seeds, and a wealthy territory is revealed, and I do an interesting choice here, which I think is probably the correct one. I go all in for this wealthy territory. And that means I sent an army away in both of my defense cards. I was happy that I was able to win it. I think the resource boost helps me quite a bit. It makes my Suez Canal even stronger, and especially with me planning on getting the autonomous territory, I think the 3 additional blue tokens are extremely helpful for me. So that's why I was very happy being able to win this, but it also puts me in a bit of a dangerous situation, because I've just used 2 defense cards. I am now very low in strength. At least I have Nostradamus to help me. But there are different things how I can get away with all of this. First of all, I was really hoping that maybe I get lucky and after Eepogi's turn there's one of the 2 copies of cannons revealed. That would just be perfect, and I would probably delay the Suez Canal by 1 turn in order to just make a transition into a perfect transition into the fortifications tactic. But if the cannons are not revealed, it gets a bit annoying, because I can of course go for the knights, but I don't have any tactic for them. I could just rebuild a lot of warriors, but I can't really make certain that I am not in danger of an aggression from A440. But what I can do is to just build 1 single warrior. That makes it that if Eepogi doesn't increase his strength, I'm safe from an aggression from him, and I only need 1 H2 defense card to be safe from an aggression from A440, and if I go for that, I will finish the Suez Canal, so I will still get 3 draws, and meaning I have a chance to get a defense card, and if I don't get a defense card, then I also have a chance that A440 either doesn't have an aggression or doesn't want to try out an aggression with his relatively low military action count. So I felt like there are a lot of things how I don't get punished for this, and with that at the end I was willing to go all in, even though it could potentially end up being a bit awkward for me. Eepogi upgrades the last mine to coal, takes the scientific method with the Darwin discount, also the selective breeding. Also, of course, my opponents have seeded again, and also some interesting cards. A440 has pushed the uncertain borders into the deck, so a big strength event, and Eepogi has now actually pushed the iconoclasm into the deck, so also a very interesting event to have knowledge about. Eepogi with his last civil action will develop the selective breeding. I know what event is on top. It's only there's only one event left in that event deck, and that event are the reds. While I didn't like it too much to push any strength events in there, with the Nostradamus bonus, I at the end was willing to push the Grime Wave, so that I don't lose any food, because after my turn I would have accumulated 1 food that then would be lost. So I seed. The reds are revealed, but they stay hungry in this game. Not a single point of food is eaten by them, so all players were perfectly prepared for the reds here. And as you can see, sadly there was not a copy of cannons revealed, which could mean that I'm a bit in an awkward situation, but I, instead of investing into cannons, can at least now already this turn finish the Suez Canal, get the autonomous territory. I had to think about what do I want to take from it. And I think I have more than enough science, so I don't really need that. I, at the end, took additional resource. I could take additional food, because at that point it's unclear whether I get the second copy of selective breeding, as A440 is also competing for that. But there's also still an ocean liner service, and I have still a somewhat decent amount of population, so at the end, the turn would also be a bit awkward, and I would actually not have that many resources if I don't take the resource here, so at the end resources felt best. But it makes it a bit challenging for me to get out of corruption, and I can't spend actions to increase my population, which otherwise could have been nice. I built 1 warrior, so that if I draw 3 cards now, I'm 7 to 14, 1 defense card and 3 normal cards are 7, so if I draw a defense card, would be able to defend against A440. I don't want to build any more. Even if I build 2 warriors, I only get 1 draw then, and I would still be in danger of an aggression, so I just want to get more draws to make it more likely that I can actually defend. And I also don't want to commit too heavily into warriors, as I still want to go for that fortifications tactic if possible. However, then I still have corruption. Ideally, if I for example would have taken science, I could now use one of the rich lands to either build an additional mine or farm. I rather thought about a farm, because the good harvest is coming soon. And I actually choose to still do it, but without using a rich land, which is a bit annoying. I don't know if I find a time to use those rich lands still before the end of the age. There's maybe a decent chance I can either get selective breeding or coal, but it's not clear. But it still gives me a way to get out of corruption. The Good Harvest is coming, and so that felt somewhat nice to do. I'm also somewhat in danger of wars here, but I leave myself with enough resource to go for a fortifications tactic. If the Good Harvest is however not revealed before my next turn, then I might have to destroy something in order to go for the fortifications, which could be a bit annoying, but I nonetheless was willing to do this, and with my remaining civil actions I ended up just taking the efficient upgrade to get even my upgrades going even more efficient. And yeah, that's my turn, but of course I was very much afraid there could be some nasty stuff that could be happening to me. For example, A440 could annex my autonomous territory, there could be a raid again, which we don't have good memories of from the last game against A440. So there could be some annoying stuff. So I was hoping that I might just draw a defense card, or if not, that A440 doesn't go for any aggressions, or maybe also no wars. I don't get a defense card, and there's no aggression, which I was very relieved to see. So I did get away with it this time, at least for now. And A440 instead seeds, and he puts an event into the deck. Maybe it could still be that he has an aggression in hand and maybe wasn't willing to try it out against me, because the event that he pushes is actually quite an influential one, and it could be very important for him to see it revealed soon, because that event is the Ravages of Time, which I was not too happy to see. He will lose the library, which he can maybe be fine with, and I lose the Forbidden City, and Eepogi loses the Silk Road, so I and Eepogi will get hit very harshly by that. So it doesn't tell necessarily whether if 440 has an aggression in hand that he seeds here. He will go for even more strength, upgrades the warrior to rifleman, takes the cavalryman, the breakthrough, and sadly the first copy of cannons. I was now a bit worried that I might end up without any cannons and might end up in a very vulnerable military position. At least A440, with having chosen the Republic, will now get limited draws, and that will hinder him maybe a little bit of trying something aggressive. Eepogi goes for an upgrade to scientific method, plays the patriotism with the Silk Road bonus, takes the strategy, builds one swordsman, another swordsman, gets still 3 draws, is at 13 strength, and takes the strategy with the Darwin discount for only 1 civil action. Now it is my turn, and sadly I skipped a little bit forward, but as you can see, I first of all don't seed. I could have an event that I would like to push very much. I could have seed one, the popularization of science, which at the moment I would profit the most from, and I have knowledge about it, so I can maybe prepare for it even more. But there are 2 H1 events on top. One is the Uncertain Borders, which I would get hit by, but that's not even too bad, because I probably will get hit by that event anyway. But the other event is the Good Harvest. And the Good Harvest, I think, has some insane potential for me here. And I, at the end, wanted to do something with that. And with that, I didn't want to risk opening that event now. The thing is, I didn't get the selective breeding yet, and A440 also still needs one. He will get now the Ocean Liner service, which he maybe even prefers over the selective breeding, especially with having an Engineering Genius in hand, but he also would have a Ridgeland in hand, so I think both solutions could end up being fine for him. If I take neither of those cards, there is at least a chance that A440 could take both Ocean Liner service and the selective breeding. Maybe the chance is not that high, but I don't know if I get the chance to upgrade my population now, and doing those population upgrades now is just also extremely efficient for me, as I will get double the food income immediately thanks to the Good Harvest, and it also gives me a chance to use those Ridgelands. I could have gone for the coal instead, but my resource production is at least fine for now, so I at the end thought I rather want to get the selective breeding going now quickly, maybe, or actually the coal will be discarded, so I will make the decision here to skip the coal and play on 6 resource production, which I guess is fine, and I have 8 civil actions, so I have a lot of civil actions to work with, I have a lot of resources already in hand with my yellow cards. I do think it's a fine position to skip the coal. I also still need to commit to a leader. I thought about doing something with James Watt, either using him to actually get the selective breeding going for cheaper, or maybe actually doing something with the coal with him. But if I replace Nostradamus already this turn, I lose his strength, and that makes me quite a bit more vulnerable towards aggressions. So I didn't really like it that much, and with that I rather aim towards Maria here, who I for now can just take in hand without missing out on too much value, and then at the next turn, maybe after the Good Harvest has been revealed, I will have tons of food, and then I can elect her and start getting a lot of value out of her. And yeah, so I thought that was quite strong. Of course, I could also go for Ocean Liner myself, but I think with the Good Harvest coming, with me having all of those yellow cards in hand, the Selective Breeding is just clearly the better choice. There's also an International Red Cross in the game, and as you can see, I can use one rich land, another rich land, I take Maria, I build a warrior, so that again I am just 4 strength with Nostradamus behind Eepogi. I'm not in danger of an aggression from him, and at least again I need only 1 defense card to be able to defend against A440. I build a warrior, and then I still need to get out of corruption, and yeah, I mean, Good Harvest is coming, I have Maria, I just used this efficient upgrade to go up to 8 food production. So, not that long ago, the rats were revealed, we all had 0 food, but now I might soon have very much food to work with, and with Maria that of course translates into a lot of value. But again, I was very worried about what A440 might do, and I was really hoping that I might draw a defense card here. Sadly, I don't draw a defense card, and there is an aggression happening, but I was somewhat relieved, because as you can see, it's actually an H1 blunder, which is still annoying. Losing some food with Maria isn't great, but a Good Harvest is coming. I should still have a very good amount of food to work with, and so I was somewhat relieved to see this. And now it could be an indicator that A440 doesn't have an aggression in hand, unless he maybe wanted to save the better aggression for maybe a future aggression. That could of course be the case, but the blunder goes through. He finishes the Ocean Liner service this turn. It's very strong for him. It's interesting that he just took the food from the blunder, because that will just help him avoid famine, but I guess that is very useful. He will delay having to build an additional farm for quite some time. He doesn't get a copy of Selective Breeding to help with the famine, so that could actually be very helpful for him, and maybe he has a solid amount of resource to work with. He will develop the Cavalryman, builds one, and is now at 19 strength, but might at least lose Jan Shishka before his next turn. Now it's Eepogi's turn. He seeds. For the last time I see what he seeds with Nostradamus. The Uncertain Borders are revealed. Sadly not a Good Harvest. I mean, I would have lost the Uncertain Borders anyway, but Eepogi will now be able to get the Good Harvest with being able to upgrade the 2 farms before that. And Eepogi has seeded the International Agreement in. He goes for those 2 upgrades, takes the Patriotism, the Urban Growth, and a Cavalryman for 1 civil action cheaper. And as you can see, the second copy of Cannons has not been revealed yet. Being able to go for that would really help me in just making sure that I'm finally no longer in danger of an aggression. So I was really hoping that it's not among the last 2 cards. That would be really annoying. Then I would be in a really dangerous position. So I was really hoping that Vlada will give me the cannons now. First of all, I will seed with Nostradamus, revealing the Good Harvest, which will be helpful for me this turn. And the cannons are revealed, just barely, so I was very relieved to see that. I pushed the Popularization of Science into the deck. The Good Harvest is revealed. I take the cannons, and now there's a bit of an annoying thing, and I have to figure out how I want to deal with it, and that is that the Iconoclasm is one of those 3 events. So I could now elect Maria Theresa and get a lot of value out of her, but she might then be gone very soon. My first idea was to do that anyway, but then I also remembered that A440 has pushed the Ravages of Time into the deck, so the Forbidden City will soon be destroyed, and if I have no Happy Face solution, that could end in a disaster for me. Of course I could maybe gamble, hoping that I get either Chaplain, the 1 Happy Face leader, or one of the 2 copies of Professional Sports, but that could backfire very heavily, so I came to the conclusion that I kinda have to take this Organized Religion for 2, which is quite expensive for me. I wasn't happy about it. And in order to be able to take the Organized Religion for 2 civil actions, I actually can't increase my population a lot of times. And at the end, I thought I will go for a turn where I will actually only increase my population once, leaving me with lots of food saved up, leaving Maria Theresa in hand for now, and then hoping that the Iconoclasm will be out soon, so that I can then go for Maria Theresa and get a lot of activations and start getting a lot of value out of her. Being able to get Maria Theresa was also another reason why I was willing to skip Cole, but of course with the Iconoclasm it's not that clear how long I will be able to keep her and how... yeah. Of course, me keeping Maria Theresa in hand and having Nostradamus sends a crystal clear signal to A440 that one of the events coming is the Iconoclasm, and sadly he also didn't commit to an H2 leader yet, so probably he will also profit from that and is able to keep maybe Bach in hand. And it's of course not clear if the Iconoclasm is out before my next turn, but if it's not out, maybe I can then just elect Maria and increase my population as often as I can, with the danger of her then being lost soon. But yeah, with me kind of having to take this organized religion, I went for only one population increase. It still hurts, of course, not being able to do it with Maria, but I can build a cannon, take the organized religion, disband a warrior, build another cannon, reveal the fortifications tactic. Normally I would just probably increase my population here, but with that Maria situation, I was willing to spend another civil action to just take the sufficient upgrade, and I mean the resources could still end up being helpful for me. With that, H2 ends. I was hoping that my opponents would push now, so that the Iconoclasm is hopefully out before my next turn. H3 starts. I'm also no longer the weakest, no longer in danger of an aggression. A440 increases his population once normally. With the good harvest, he had now enough food to do that, together with the 3 food that he stolen from me. That means, of course, that soon he will actually have some famine issues, but not that turn yet. He builds a bread and circuses, builds a cavalryman, and reveals the classic army tactic. Sadly, I'm missing a resource to build a cannon, so having Maria Theresa, of course, would have had some advantages. Now I probably will soon be in danger of an aggression again, and A440 doesn't get any draws. Him being willing to do this could be an indicator that he has an aggression in hand now. But yeah, having the Republic not a common, I mean, has given him a lot of additional civil actions, but also costs him now some military threat. And also especially card draw, which is extremely valuable. He still takes Bach in hand, has read the clue correctly that Iconoclasm is coming. Interestingly, he's willing to grab the Democracy for 3, but for both Eepogi and for me it could be a very strong card. I can elect it very, very easily. Eepogi not that easily, but for him maybe the effect would be even more significant, as he's still stuck on very low civil actions. Generally, we are now at the start of H3, so maybe a good time to take a look at the overview. A440, I think, has a solid position, has now the strength lead, is threatening. Culture-wise, he is the second best. He has the Ocean Liner, which is strong, and has, I think, a solid position. He has 2 arenas, is prepared for Pierre, has lots of civil actions. Eepogi is at the moment only at 30 in strength, but might be in a position to increase his strength significantly at his next turn. He has stronger production than A440 and also mostly than me, at least the resource production. But he is very low in civil actions. Darwin is helping a little bit with that. Also helps him to have the culture lead for now. But if he doesn't get more civil actions soon, he might be somewhat limited in what he will be able to do. And then it's my situation, which is not very usual when I have tons of science saved up. So the time when I will get my H3 government form might be very relevant. And if I get one soon, that will give me a very nice boost. I think generally my position is strong, but it's also still very fragile. I could get punished by an aggression at my next turn from A440. I don't know yet how the Iconoclasm situation with Maria Theresa will evolve, so depending on how certain things go, my position could potentially fall apart, or I could get punished maybe militarily, maybe can't get a lot out of my H2 leader. But if things go right for me, if I get an H3 government form quickly, maybe Iconoclasm is out and I can have Maria for some turns, then I think my position has a lot of potential actually, with also being at 8 civil actions. But of course the Ravages of Time will be revealed soon, and that will be quite a bit of a setback. I was hoping that Eepogi would see it, but of course he has knowledge about the Iconoclasm. I mean, all players have knowledge about it now, and he maybe doesn't want to accelerate how quickly he will lose Darwin. He goes for the Cavalryman, increases his population twice, plays the Patriotism again with the Silk Road bonus, builds 2 Cavalrymen, gets out of corruption like this, and maybe plans on copying the classic army tactic at the next turn, and is now in a position where he maybe has some chances to defend himself against an aggression. Now it is my turn. I have to push here. I have to hope that the Iconoclasm gets out. I mean, maybe I could also say I don't see it. I elect Maria Theresa this turn, and then I hope that it's later in the deck so that I can maybe keep her for a little bit. But yeah, the best case scenario is just when the Iconoclasm is out and I can maybe have a chance to keep Maria Theresa for multiple turns. And actually, I saw a line that if the Iconoclasm is not revealed, that maybe I can even keep Maria Theresa and turn in hand for even another turn, which is not ideal, but could be an option. And at the end, I think I have to go for it. I have to hope that maybe the Iconoclasm could be revealed. If the Ravages of Time is revealed, that could actually be quite annoying. I see the international negotiations as I saw some chances with getting the military buildup, for example, to compete maybe for, or at least maybe not be the weakest. So I see the dead instead of the National Pride, which will for basically guaranteed help my opponent, one of my opponents. I see it, and sadly no Iconoclasm revealed, at least also not the Ravages of Time, the Crime Wave, which will maybe be a bit annoying. The blue tokens are quite valuable for me with having only bronze mines. And yeah, the question is what to do, and with me increasing my population without having elected Maria Theresa is maybe already a sign again that I will actually not play Maria Theresa this turn. And again, if I play Maria Theresa, I at least want to increase my population a lot so that I can at least get a lot of value out of that and then maybe elect her and then maybe she gets removed. But again, I thought that maybe this turn I have some stuff to do that doesn't make it that easy for me to just increase my population a total of 4 times, which I could do if I would like to. And so I again decided to actually keep Maria and Theresa in hand for another turn. Again, keep a lot of food saved up, which will sadly cause me corruption this turn, so it's not ideal, but I went for that, and I will now go for the organized religion. Build a religion, upgrade one with the efficient upgrade so that I have actually enough resource to go for that. I think the military buildup is a must take for me here. 10 resources is just extremely big for me, and then I could have now increased my population 2 more times. But with keeping Maria in hand for another turn, hoping that the Iconoclasm will be out before my next turn, I now don't want to increase my population, and instead increasing it once also doesn't help me with corruption, unless I build a warrior, but I don't really want to do this. So if increasing my population would have brought me out of corruption, I think I probably would have done it once, but now that increasing it once doesn't help me, I decided to just again accumulate a lot of food, and I took the riflemen and the tanks so that I'm prepared for some H3 tactics, which either could even give me some offensive potential if I get maybe fundamentalism or military theory, and then with military build-up, and ideally maybe keeping Maria Theresa for some turns, I could be in a position to build up quite a bit of strength, but also to defend myself in case one of my opponents gets aggressive. And then at the next turn I will hopefully be able to build 2 cannons to then be safe, but I was very worried that A440 might try an aggression, and I would need to be very lucky in order to draw enough defense cards to defend myself. I draw 1 defense card, but that's not enough, also an Impact of Harmony, and I sadly do get hit by a spy, which I think is helpful for A440, so of course I was not happy to see it, but I think there would have been worse aggression, at least on what it does to my own civilization, because I have tons of science saved up. It probably doesn't influence my next few turns too much that I have lost those 5 science, so I was somewhat okay with that outcome. For A440, of course, it's helpful. It allows him to go for the democracy, increases his culture production, goes for the cavalryman. Sadly, it means that he didn't see it, meaning there is a chance that maybe Eepogi, with having knowledge about the Iconoclasm, again also doesn't see it, and then it's a coin flip at my turn whether the Iconoclasm gets out. I440 didn't find the time yet to build a 3rd farm, so this turn he will actually have famine, and now his food reserves are exhausted. There's a fundamentalism coming down the road, which maybe I could get into, but there's also a democracy coming down the road. I was interested to see which I might end up with of those, depending maybe on whether Eepogi will take one away. Eepogi sadly doesn't see it, so it's not a given that the Iconoclasm is even out before my next turn. He takes the fundamentalism, interestingly, for civil action cheaper, and the engineering, maybe preparing himself for both a peaceful and an aggressive option. Or of course the fundamentalism could also help him defending himself. Now, on this turn I again need to try it, I think, and I just was really hoping that the Iconoclasm is out. It's a bit unfortunate that none of my opponents has seeded, but I mean A440 had some aggressions to go for, and Eepogi maybe doesn't have an interest in seeding. maybe at least it costed him something. Maybe he had some events that he kind of would like to push but didn't want to because of the Iconoclasm. And now it's a 50-50 chance. I didn't want to push the National Bride with that many food production. I was hoping that I can make a fine harmony at the end. So I see the impact of harmony, and I was really hoping that not the Ravages of Time is revealed, but instead the Iconoclasm that will now be very influential for me, because losing that civil action this turn and also the ignored unhappy workers will be quite a bit annoying, while yeah, and the Iconoclasm without would also be very annoying. So now it will be exciting. And sadly, I do get a bit unlucky here. The Iconoclasm is the last card in the deck, and the Ravages of Time is revealed, meaning I have to destroy my Forbidden City this turn. However, this turn, I will first of all go for the Democracy. It's a bit risky now that I've lost the 5 signs, but I think it's just too strong for me. I think I have to go for it. So I go for the Democracy. And this turn, I think I finally can't delay increasing my population any longer. Maybe I could still keep Maria in hand, but until I for the first time get her military resources, it will take a long time. So at this point, I just decided to use her a lot this turn, and then maybe and then I have to expect that I will lose her before my next turn, so sadly I won't be getting any resources out of her. So that whole thing with the Iconoclasm sadly didn't go very well for me. I maybe should have just elected her still in H2, but maybe then my opponents would have pushed and she would have been out very quickly. I think it could have gone well if at least the Iconoclasm would be out by now. I think it could be fine. I can get a lot of value out of her resources over some turns, more population increases, but like this it's a bit unfortunate. But yeah, as said, I will elect her now. I play the military, build up for 10 additional resources. I finally don't want to be in threat of getting hit, in danger of getting hit by another aggression, and then I just increase my population actually as much as I can. But as you can see, because of the Forbidden City destroyed, I actually don't have too happy population, meaning I have to disband a warrior in order to build another cannon, which is not that great, costing me some draws. Also, I sadly don't get out of corruption, so having an additional civil action in order to do some stuff with not losing the Forbidden City also would have been helpful. Yeah, maybe I could have missed out on one population increase to take one of those cards, but at the end, those are actions that I have to do at some point anyway, and now I can get some additional value with Maria Theresa, so at the end was willing to just increase my population at least 4 times, so 4 signs for culture is still somewhat nice as a value, but yeah, very likely she will be gone before my next turn. I only draw 1 card, however that 1 draw is quite lucky. I get the impact of colonies, which gives me +6 against Eepogi and +9 against A440 right now. A440 seats, so yeah, now the Iconoclasm is out. He can now go for Bach, so for him it worked out somewhat fine, even though Bach, maybe, let's see how much he can do with it. I mean, a copy of movies is in a row. He instead, though, will fix his famine, maybe also prepare himself for the Red Cross with going for mechanized agriculture, takes the urban growth, the efficient upgrade, elects Bach, takes the computers and the reserves, gets a lot of strong cards and doesn't even bother about the movies, interestingly. Maybe with the computers rather wants to set himself up for Gates and Sid Meier. With the arenas he is already set up for Pierre, so maybe he just expects to replace Bach soon and just get a 2 culture for some turns maybe. With that he also is about to take the culture lead right now. And sadly I do get hit by a war. I'm not sure if I could have prepared a lot better for it. I didn't have an easy way to get more resource. Maybe I could have done somehow to get out of corruption, maybe with not going for the democracy, but I also kind of think I had to take some risks here. And it will also not be the biggest war, so Eepogi will nonetheless go for it. Can build 2 cavalrymen. With Chaplin he has enough happy faces. Takes the movies in hand to maybe also get a movie with Chaplin at some point. He has only a 2 culture reduction at the moment, thrown after having lost Darwin. And we can see at my turn there's a copy of Air Force revealed, which will help me, but again I also was unhappy about the Iconoclasm timing, because if I would have been able to keep Maria, I would have had now 3 additional resources. For my turn with the reserves, I would have been able to build 2 air forces, which would be enough to win the war. Probably it would just mean that Eepogi doesn't even go for the war, but that of course would also be a very nice outcome for me. But sadly now I have lost Maria and I'm missing 1 resource in order to build 2 air forces. Maybe I should have somehow gotten rid of corruption, but I'm not sure if I used the military build-up, if there would have been a nice way to do it. No, maybe I could have destroyed a mine and built another cannon or something, but then I again can't go for 2 air forces, so yeah, not a bit of a tough situation. At my turn, I push the impact of colonies, just using my politics phases. This time I'm a bit lucky with the event timing. The popularization of science is revealed, and A440 at his next turn will actually go for 2 computer upgrades so soon that would have been even benefited him the most. I will go for the air forces. I could have also gone for 2 more cannons, but that also leaves me prepared for maybe some other H3 tactics that I can threaten. And then I will also go for Marie Curie. I need a new leader. She will give me 2 strength, 2 culture reduction. At least I'm going up to 8 culture reduction now. And with the last 2 civil actions, I actually take urban growth in movies, which seems a bit greedy. I maybe should take one of those resource yellows, but I figured that the 4 additional resources don't make a big difference in how much strength I can threaten at the next turn, because Eepogi is somewhat dangerous, can go for fundamentalism, could get a second copy of air forces. But he first of all also needs to have a second war. And at the next turn, it doesn't make a big difference, and I need to build another organized religion very likely at some point. And then as those resources for the military don't make a big difference for the next turn, I thought I can also just take the more efficient yellow card for 1 civil action less, and also take the movies, because now that I got hit by this war, I think I also need to start taking some more risks if I still want to be in contention to win this game. I was hoping that maybe I could have a chance of getting Red Cross, which could maybe be a way for me back into the game. Yeah, but that war is of course not ideal, but it's at least not the biggest one. At least I got a chance to take the air forces here. I draw another defense card. The war, sadly no more impacts for now. A440 increases his population, plays the revolutionary idea, goes for computers, the movies are gone by now, goes for some upgrades. Pierre's actually coming down the row, but both Eepogi and I have now already committed to a new leader, and so he can just go for Pierre or Sid Meier, actually, could also be a viable option at the next turn. Goes for 2 more cavalrymen, making it also with an arena that he's the strongest, while I'm now the weakest again, which could be bad because there's the international agreement, international negotiations in this event deck. Eepogi steals 10 culture for me, not that much, but still it puts me quite a bit behind. At least Eepogi with sitting at 2 culture reduction for now. I was hoping that maybe I can still overtake him, and potentially also A440 maybe if I get the Red Cross, but that Red Cross is in the row and could be taken away now by Eepogi, who seeds, sadly reveals the international negotiations, and lets me pay 3 resources to A440, which certainly hurts me a bit and maybe doesn't help A440 too much. Maybe at this point we also can see that Eepogi, in order to become player of the year, only needs a 2nd place. I'm not sure if that decision was influenced a lot by this, but maybe with me having the weaker position probably than A440, he is maybe trying to hurt me more, or is putting more focus on how much things hurt me than how much they help A440. At least that could be the case. But I don't know if that was a consideration of him. He takes the 2nd copy of Air Forces for 3, which makes him somewhat threatening. Maybe he was missing the civil actions, or he was missing the civil actions to build 2. Maybe he also doesn't have a war, because I think even 55 strength could potentially already allow him to win a war against me. I might get close depending on if I maybe get a tactic and all help from the event deck. But now he could have a war and he could go for another air force, but it's not guaranteed that the H will go on for another turn. It's my turn. I don't really want to push the National Pride, as it likely will still be revealed this game. And the Red Cross wasn't taken away, and I think I have to take it here. I need this to score some points. I could now even play the reserves 2 for food and then build 4 stages. Would be my whole turn, but it would leave myself very vulnerable to war. I take only 1 card from the row, which makes it that A440, I think, can't end the age, if I remembered correctly. So he can't end the age, and I'm vulnerable to a war, and I'm vulnerable to an aggression. And that felt a bit too much for me. Maybe I have to take such risks now, but at the end I found it a bit cleaner to increase my population, play the reserves resources as long as I still have them, build an air force, getting out of corruption, not being in danger of an aggression any longer, and then with my remaining civil actions taking the reserves, allowing me maybe to build more stuff, making me a bit more threatening. I can at least build 2 more cannons, which is not enough, but at least I can threaten it, together with a potential military theory. And I allow potentially A440 to end the age, which is probably beneficial for me. Definitely if Eepogi has a war, if not, who knows, maybe it could even be good for me, but Eepogi has a lot of resources to spend, so maybe it could be fine for me to end the game if the game ends now. And also in case one of my opponents should not build a step, the reserves are important to have so that I can also build 4 steps potentially. So that was my turn here. I could have taken the military theory as well, but as said, I want to have that for food. The resources make me more threatening, and there are still 2 copies of military theory, so I was thinking I have still a decent chance to get one. At the next turn, I actually draw 3 impacts, and one of them is very much seedable. The impact of agriculture with my 3 farms gives me at the moment +3 against both of my opponents, so I was happy to see that. A440 seeds, and the international agreement is revealed, which Eepogi will be able to use, but it would cost him his politics phase. A440 builds a step of the Red Cross. I was now very interested to see whether he would end the game or not. He goes for Pierre. That shortly before the end, the Olympic Games are just too strong in him, and he has 3 arenas, can build even a 4th one. Takes the military theory, develops it, making me the weakest again, takes the rockets and the multimedia, and with that, as you can see, he takes enough cards to now end the age. And when we take a look at the culture overview, we can also see that it probably makes sense for him. He already has a bit of a lead. Look at the Olympic Games, 1 more big production turn, is not badly prepared for impact, so I guess he thought that he had now decent chances to win the game if he ends the age. I was hoping that maybe I at least have some chances to still finish second, maybe some very small hope to still win the game, but mostly I was thinking that with the Red Cross and the impact of colonies and potentially harmony, I was hoping that it isn't revealed before my next turn. So that I maybe can finish before Eepogi. Age 4 starts. Eepogi doesn't use the international agreement, instead cedes. The impact of variety is revealed. I was not certain if I should be happy or unhappy about the impact of harmony not being revealed, because I will be able to improve it up to 20, but Eepogi from 12 to 20, but Eepogi will be able to improve it from 12 to 16. And now that I know that the impact of harmony is on top, it gets kind of awkward pushing. And maybe if the impact of harmony would have been out, at least Eepogi also wouldn't be able to increase that impact by +4, and I would be able to push the impact of agriculture for +6 against both of my opponents. So maybe it could have been even good for me to see the harmony now, but at least I have now the option to not see it and make the harmony bigger. Eepogi builds a step, builds a movie, takes the professional sports. That's his whole turn. Now it's the question, do I see the impact of agriculture, which gives me a set +6 against both my opponents, the seeding for culture already included, or do I not see it, and especially if I build 2 urban buildings, my harmony will improve by +8, and I mean +8 is more than +6. If 2 events would be left, I think I certainly would have risked it and seeded impact of agriculture, even though there would be the danger of an impact of harmony being revealed. But now, with knowing for certain that it's on top, I sadly came to the conclusion that I can't put that impact of agriculture in. I will first of all finish the Red Cross, that's a given. As you can see, I have quite some unhappy phase issues. And I could build a movie here, I could develop it, build one with playing reserves and urban growth, and I could still then maybe disband something, probably a unit to keep a good harmony, and build a religion, maximizing my culture production. But I can do something different which helps me for a lot of impacts, and I decided to rather go for that. I built an organized religion. Instead of the movies, I will develop the military theory. I play the reserves, build another organized religion, and that's my whole turn. So I get less culture production, but my impact of happiness is a lot better, as well as my impact of progress and government. All those 3 impacts are impacts that A440 could seed, and all those are impacts that would give me points against Eepogi. After my turn, I will be 4 culture behind Eepogi. Impact of happiness he isn't maxed out on, and impact of government is actually quite bad. Progress he's not as bad, but I would still score more points now, and I thought all those impacts could potentially have been seeded or now be seeded by A440. and yeah, it just felt more clean. Also, I get stronger. Maybe it could help me for an impact of strength. I don't lose culture for an impact of competition by disbanding a unit. So it just overall felt more clean with being able to develop the military theory. There's one big argument towards the movies, though, and that is that just having one more culture reduction would allow me to have more culture reduction than Eepogi, making it that I would score more of an impact of culture. An impact of culture is also an impact that A440 could have seeded or maybe could seed now. So that could be swinging, but it's only one impact. Now that I'm thinking of it, I'm not sure if there was an option of me just building normal temples. I think I could have maybe built just, instead of 2 big ones, 3 small ones. I think it could have been possible. I actually didn't consider that. That would give me one more culture reduction, would help me for the impact of culture, but then again, I also wouldn't be as nicely prepared for the impact of happiness. I would probably need to dispense something, but I guess maybe not even. Maybe that's something that I overlooked here. Maybe that could have been a nice middle ground option, still getting the military theory and the help for those impacts, but also actually building those 3 temples, not as much for an impact of architecture, which could also be an impact in there, but yeah, being able to get one more culture for certain and overtake Eepogi for the impact of culture. Maybe a mistake, but depends on the impacts, of course. I wouldn't have the full happy faces then also. Now it's A440's turn. He seeds, opens the impact of harmony, which I was preparing for it now at least score more than Eepogi in, meaning we have now the same amount of culture. Actually all 3 players, but A440 of course gets his last production as well. He will build another arena, maxes out his happy faces, so impact of happiness could be in there. He also goes for the civil service, maybe impact of government or progress could be in there. He upgrades the farm, so if I would have seeded the impact of agriculture, he would now score even more in it. Another option that I forgot to mention is to seed the impact of science, just play for the 2nd place and build an additional lab so that I overtake Eepogi in that. But I again would lose 8 points from the impact of harmony, and I mean, maybe at least I have some very small chances for 1st place as well. So as with the impact of colonies, that's giving me +9 against A440, so I didn't want to remove that option completely. And A440 gets the last yellows out of his bank, builds some more units, is now at 55 strength, which I was not too happy to see, because he makes it that he's now in between Eepogi and me. So before strength increase, if an impact of strength is in there, I would get a -7 against Eepogi. Now it would be -14, so now I really have to hope that no impact of strength is in there. And yeah, so let's now it will be interesting to see what impacts will be in there before the final impacts. We can see that as we saw, Eepogi and I have the same amount of culture. I have an impact of colonies that's giving me some culture against Eepogis, and as we saw with government, progress, happiness, there are some impacts that A440 could have very well seeded that will give me good points against Eepogi, but there are also impacts like culture and strength which could really be quite bad, so now it will just depend on what 4 impacts are in the deck. The first one is actually the impact of culture, so maybe I should have gone for that religion line. I sadly somehow missed out on it, and saw it just now when recording the video. And the next impact is sadly the impact of strength, so Eepogi gets another +14 against me, is actually getting closer to A440 here, and now with those 2 impacts revealed, now I maybe need a perfect impact in order to come back. One is at least the impact of colonies, but I'm still 15 culture behind Eepogi, and the impact of technology is not a bad one for me compared to Eepogi, but is definitely not enough for me to catch up to him. And yeah, so at the end, A440 is able to win this game, Eepogi finishes 2nd, I sadly lose the game. I think it was still somewhat close. I imagine that maybe A440 has seeded the impact of culture. I think for Eepogi it would be way too risky, because I could have just overtaken him, so I think it was probably seeded by A440. If that impact is just removed, and then maybe just instead he seeds the impact of progress or government or something, I already would finish before Eepogi, so it's a bit of a points difference, but I think it was quite close and depended a little bit on the impact draws. I could have prepared for the impact of culture though. And I mean, it's a 14-point swing. I would gain one more culture from the religions. There was no impact of happiness. There was no impact of architecture. So I can't only blame maybe bad impact luck for me. I also could have done actually something about it. So yeah, I could have maybe actually secured my second place if I would have seen it. And yeah, so 840 again, my next 3-player game against him where he's able to win, and also he goes for some aggressions against me again, this time not as bad, but still a bit annoying, of course. And so congratulations, of course, big congratulations to him after winning the World Championship. Now he's able to win the Leaderboard Trophy tournament. But, of course, also big congratulations to Eepogi, who, with finishing second, which was quite close, but he managed to achieve it. And with finishing second, he scores enough points for the leaderboard to be actually crowned the Player of the Year. So that's, of course, also a very nice achievement for him. Very big congratulations. I think he very much deserves it. And yeah, so congratulations to both of my opponents. I would have liked it, of course, to maybe say congratulations to one of my opponents less. But yeah, they played very well. I maybe got a bit unfortunate in some situations. With the iconoclasm timing, border conflict was also not that great from timing wise. And I could have also gotten punished more, though. A440 could have annexed my autonomous territory. I didn't get hit as much by aggressions as I maybe could have. Still, this game felt a bit weird for me. It always felt like I have a strong position, I just need to stabilize, and then I might potentially run away, and then it kept on with, first of all, needing, again, being vulnerable to aggressions, the iconoclasm not being revealed, and then sadly I wasn't able to keep Maria, which maybe was the thing that allowed Eepogi to go for that war. Maybe he could have then gone for it later, that is a possibility. But yeah, those things didn't went that great for me. I mean, I took a bit of a risk with going all in the wealthy territory, but I think that was worth it, and I also didn't get punished that much by aggressions. If I did the right choice about Maria, it's of course questionable. I think it was reasonable, and maybe just a bit unfortunate that my opponents just stopped seeding completely for 2 turns, and it was actually the last card. I think that was a bit unfortunate. Nonetheless, it was an interesting game. It was a fun game with that big food production, plus good harvest, plus Maria. I mean, it would have been more fun if Maria Theresa would have been able to stick a little bit more around, but it was still an interesting setup generally, and sadly I didn't convert it into a win, and maybe could have converted it into a second place if I would have seen that option of building an additional religion, which I think should have been possible, because while I would have needed an additional civil action to do it, I think that costs me that many resources less compared to just building 2, so that I didn't need to play the reserves. But I actually would have to disband a unit, so would have cost me points for competition and strength. So it's not a clear mistake or something, but in hindsight, it might have brought me actually the second place. Alright. And with that, the Leaderboard Trophy tournament is concluded. We have a Player of the Year. And yeah, I hope it was interesting for you to take part in the tournament. I think some very strong, well-known players have participated, so I think it was nice to cover it. And I was also happy to make it to the finals. And yeah, I hope it was an interesting watch for you. And then I say thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.